Chapter 2 Underground. Jaden drifted. Strange images assaulted his mind like flashes of someone else's memories. He caught brief glimpses of lit passageways interspersed with black, foreboding holes that disappeared into nothingness. Flawless, dark faces reflected a green glow, in contrast to the bluest eyes he had ever seen. Round spheres as foreign and beautiful as a full moon, which radiated a deep intelligence and shone with a light of their own. There was something calming in those eyes that filled him with a sense of peace. The image faded, and suddenly he was back in Crysin Castle. He knew every inch of the old bed, from the taut velvet canopy to the carved oak posts. Old Aldrich Buell himself, Eridan's most respected woodworker, had etched the intricate designs into the frame when Jaden was a boy. Dragons, unicorns, lions, and a fascinating host of other wildlife appeared frozen in time, enslaved in the dark wood grains by the master carpenter's spell. He knew every face as if they were old friends. On the bed next to him sat... "Mother? Shh. Rest now." She stroked a stray lock of his sandy brown hair, smiling. Her voice, as always, made him feel as if he were 8 years old again. But then Queen Jocelyn had that effect on everyone. "I have failed you," he said, his eyes swelling with tears. "I have failed everyone." There was something he had neglected to do. The weight of unknown, unfinished business bore down on him, filling him with an overwhelming sense of dread. His mother's knowing look helped silence his fears. "You have a long road ahead of you, my beautiful boy," she said patiently. "This war has been waged since the beginning. There is still time."
"Time," echoed a rich voice in the background. "If the boy sleeps any longer, there will be no battles left to fight."
"Father!"
King Urian was of medium height, handsome, with a broad frame. Shoulder-length curls the exact brown as Jaden's flowed from beneath his ornate golden crown. His face held the same mischievous grin that it always had. The queen rolled her eyes. "There has never been any shortage of battles," she said, "or men to fight them. Your mind will serve you best in the long run, my son."
"Don't coddle him, Jocelyn. He is Orion Thorn. His mind is keen, and he is as strong as an ox, like his father."
"We can only hope he did not inherit your humility," she chided, before turning a serious face back to Jaden. "Now is the time to rest and regain your strength. The land needs you." On instinct he turned. The walls of the castle became transparent, and he gazed out across the countryside. The lush fields, forests, and orchards of his homeland maintained their beauty, but there was an unnatural stillness about them, as though the life that thrived within was holding its breath. There was a sense of wrongness that stirred a fire deep within him. This would not stand. He turned a gaze filled with renewed determination toward his parents. "I will make things right," he told them. "I swear it." "I know you will, my brave boy," his mother replied proudly. She stepped away from the bed to stand beside her husband. A faint glow enveloped the couple, and the rubies that bedecked King Urion's crown transformed into flame. The glow brightened to white hot, blotting everything from sight. Jaden was gripped by a terrible fear that he would never see them again.
"Come back!"
he shouted.
"I need you!"
Their voices sounded inside his head. "When you need us most,
we will be there.
We are thoughts." And then they were gone, taking the light with them. He struggled to see in the darkness and found that his eyes were closed. A part of him had known all along that the apparitions were not really there, but the physical confirmation that it had all been a dream was still upsetting. The experience had been so vivid that for a moment he almost believed they were real. Opening his eyes, he found himself staring up at the most intricately chiseled stone relief he had ever seen. A glowing green orb suspended in the corner of the little room illuminated the scene on the ceiling with incredible clarity, bringing it to life. The artist had used a variation of color in the rock itself. each stroke carefully placed where it was best suited, as if they could see into the stone as they worked, or as if the stone itself had been created for this one purpose. The effect was magical. The scene portrayed the last king of Sidon as Father Alamon the Wise presented the legendary bladed staff to him over 2,000 years ago, granting him mysterious powers and proclaiming him protector of Alnorda. Jaden had heard the tale before, but to see it spread out before him, the planets floating lazily around the sun in the background, left him with a newfound respect for the enormity of the event. The occasion held a special meaning for him, as it was one of his ancestors who had crossed the split shortly after its creation to help seal the gate to the demon world. The role that Mandan Sheeran played in the historic act was unclear, but somehow, along with 3 unknown individuals, the Protector and Alamon himself, they had performed the heroic deed. His mother had told him the story many times as she sat at his bedside, lulling him to sleep with her hypnotic voice. Most people had no idea what happened that day, but Jaden was tutored by the brightest minds in Crysin, his mother one of them, and he knew his history well. An army of demons had crossed into Alnorda, and a great battle was fought. Men, wizards, and demons alike had died, but the outcome was that mankind had survived. It was his favorite story. He was so caught up in the chiseled masterpiece and his own reflections, he failed to notice that he was not alone. When he turned his head, he was startled to see a pair of big blue eyes similar to the ones from the strange dream. Only this time it was no dream. He shrieked. Long lashes fluttered in surprise. It was a girl, with ebony skin so dark that the gleam of her eyes in the dim lantern-like light was all he could see of her face at first. As his own eyes adjusted, the low green reflection of the orb on the exposed areas of her skin gave her a surreal, fragmented appearance, as if pieces of her were floating in mid-air. She shrieked back in imitation. It was obvious from her playful smile that she had either misinterpreted his reaction or was enjoying his fright. Moving toward him with a fluid grace, she eyed him as one might inspect an intriguing bug on a leaf. Her features were sharp, delicate, beautiful. Then her hands came up to the side of the bed, and he noticed her claws. The ends of each finger melded seamlessly into long, razor-sharp talons. "Drasa fair, dueña," she said. Her voice was airy and lilting. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." The girl frowned, biting her lower lip and tapping her claws on the bed. Then her face brightened, and without another word she turned and burst from the room. As she left, Jaden noted the lean muscles of her body as they glinted in the strange light. Her clothing consisted of loose flowing green breeches cinched above her calf, and a sleeveless green shirt of the same material with twin straps that ran over her shoulders. The shirt was tied tightly beneath her bosom, exposing her midriff. "Where am I?" he wondered aloud. Sitting up was not nearly as painful as expected. His lower torso had been wrapped in bandages made from the massive leaves of some plant. Picking at them, he found that they tore easily. Underneath, his stomach was covered in a clear, sticky substance, and he was pleased to discover that the gashes made from the claws of the imp, Hubert, had already begun to heal. Looking around the room, he was struck by the amazing variety of vegetation. There were plants of all shapes and sizes, many of them new to him. Spread amongst the common green leaves were exotic reds, oranges, yellows, and purples, adorned with thorns, flowers, or both. Everything was in full bloom. Woven hanging baskets, with flowered vines spilling over their rims to hang loosely in the air, framed a small window, through which he could see what appeared to be a dense forest. Had he somehow gotten outside of the mountain? Dangling his feet over the edge of the bed, he gently lowered himself to the floor. The square-cut stone was smooth with wear and delightfully warm against his bare feet. Examining the bed, he saw that the straw mattress was perched atop a low pinnacle of rock that rose straight from the floor. Other naturally formed amenities, such as a long counter and a table, jutted from the ground as well. There were oddly shaped woven reed furnishings covered with pillows and 2 hammocks strung from metal bolts set into the ceiling on opposite sides of the room. Woven rugs covered much of the floor. He decided that he must be in someone's home, a home like none he had ever seen. A simple beige linen shirt and matching trousers were folded and waiting for him on a carved wooden nightstand, as well as a pair of woven sandals and a cloth sash that he assumed was intended to be used as a belt. He paused briefly to relish the feel of clean clothes against his skin as he dressed. His time in Heisenthor's dungeon had made him temporarily forget what it was like to be comfortable. Now he felt well rested and ready to accept what fate had dealt him. Making his way to the open doorway, he peered out. There were almost as many types of trees visible outside as there were plants in the home. His eyes followed the trunks of the largest up to the top, where the crowns ended beneath a jagged ceiling strewn with more of the glowing green orbs, much larger than the first, forming an intricate pattern that ran off into the distance. Incredibly, he was still inside the mountain. His first instinct was to sneak away and search for a tunnel that might lead to the outside. The problem was that he had no idea which direction to take, and would just as likely find himself back in the sorcerer's clutches. Besides, judging from the way he had been treated thus far, it was difficult to imagine that his new hosts were in league with his captor, so perhaps it would be wiser to stay and see if he could find help. He contemplated his options until the choice was taken away from him by the arrival of a second ebony figure, clad in loose-fitting blue overalls. The stranger stepped from the shadows of the tree line and approached at a steady pace, as Jaden prepared for the worst. He was a thin man, but looked wiry, with no hint of excess fat on his body. His head was bald, and his chin sported a well-trimmed patch of dark beard with just a hint of gray. Claws hung down from the tips of his fingers nearly to his knees. He paused no more than 10 feet away, inhaled deeply, released a contented sigh, and fixed his gaze on Jaden. Wide blue eyes blinked twice, and teeth gleamed as he smiled. "You are welcome," said the man in an accent similar to the girl's. "I am Dago." Jaden trusted him immediately. He was struck by the childlike honesty in those voluminous eyes, like a young soul in an older vessel. This was no friend of Heisenthor. "Thank you," he told him, letting go of some of his fear and remembering his manners. "My name is Jaden." "Do you come for knowledge?" Dago asked brightly, curiosity plain on his face. "No." The look of curiosity deepened. "Why do you come?" "I am lost," he admitted. "Ah." The expression on Dago's face was almost smug, as if he had expected the reply. "Knowledge will find you." As he pondered Dago's words, 2 more figures approached from the cover of the enclosed woods. One was the girl, and the other was a tall female in a light blue dress, who had to be her mother by the resemblance. The older woman carried a steaming tray of food that caused his mouth to water with the smell of strange spices. The 3 shared a smile at the look on his face. Dago laughed heartily, then gripped him gently by the shoulder. "We will eat now and speak of Druenia.